Man, these Squid kids are rich. They've got 2 washing machines now. I don't even know why you need that. Today we're going to be talking about the Sloshing Machine Neo, the newest kit for the sloshing machine that came out with Drizzle Season 2023. And it's a weird one because it's replacing one of the best kits that they ever put in the game. The vanilla sloshing machine needed a very significant main weapon fire rate nerf to take it down a peg. It had this great mid-range AoE that comboed really well with the Fizzy Bomb that it could throw. Fizzy Bomb also gave it mobility that it lacked from the main weapon because of how slow this fire rate is. And on top of that, if it ever got into a bad situation, it could pop a Booyah Bomb. And so it had all of the strengths that you get out of the sloshing machine, this little bit of extra range, the AoE damage, the ability to hit up over ledges, and all of that good stuff. But the weakness of the slow fire rate, of how easy it was to kind of run down, of the fact that longer ranged weapons were going to be able to kind of poke it out, especially since it could move super well, all countered by the rest of its kit. Its sub-weapon gave it better mobility, gave it the ability to poke, gave it a lot more paint, because that's something that this main weapon lacks. And then the special gave it a survivability option that was also a really powerful way to get the rest of the team in. Because this weapon is going to be good for holding your ground, for standing still and making it difficult for someone to run at you. But in terms of pushing up and taking space, it was a little bit lackluster. And then it gets this really great displacement special that is absolutely perfect for setting up the rest of its team. So, it was a super well-rounded kit. You could play it all over the place, extremely flexible. And it took major nerfs to the main weapon before we stopped seeing that in competitive play as much. Now, this kit was always going to be worse than the previous one. It's very hard to make a better kit than that one. But it does have a couple of nice things going for it right now. First of all, Trizooka is just one of the most powerful specials in the game at the moment. It's being used all over the place. It's very ubiquitous. A lot of teams are running 2 of them. They do a lot of damage, and it's pretty hard to avoid getting, murked by one every now and then. So, pretty reliable value out of those, and that's something that's really nice from this. It's also pretty nice that you're more often going to be at a range where you actually want to use the Trizooka. Because as a sloshing machine, you're kind of always looking for positions where you can hit up over ledges. You're trying to look for, who can I harass with this weapon? You're not trying to hard commit to engagements. You're trying to keep people at arm's length. And so that kind of helps with your positioning for the Zuka. You don't have to back up as much as something like a splatter shot might have to sometimes. And there's also some synergy with the sub-weapon. Point sensor is useful in that a lot of the shots that you're trying to hit with the machine are on opponents that you can't see. A lot of the time, you're trying to hit shots at someone who's up there, because you can hit that with this weapon. You can, in fact, 2-shot that with this weapon without seeing it. Well, this lets you see it. And so that's a really helpful piece of utility to have built into the kit, that you can just throw this at some blind corner that you're scared to push, know that it's safe, or better yet, know that the opponent is there, know exactly what angle you need to be at to hit them, and it's really hard for them to counterplay you because you don't need to be able to see them to hit them, whereas they will often need to be able to see you or even have an open sight line against you. And the machine doesn't need either of those things, and you can use the point sensor to scope people out that way. But the disadvantage of that part of the kit is that you don't have a way to deal any damage outside of where the main weapon can hit. If there's anything longer range, your only answer is the Trizooka. You have to kind of stall and wait until you get that special or until somebody else moves them out, because otherwise there's just no way in. You're very, very main weapon reliant, which means you're reliant on like this fairly slow damage. You don't have any of the damage combos that you had access to with the Fizzy Bomb. It's either you're in a hard committed engagement using just the main weapon to win a fight, or you're not taking the fight at all, or you're, depending on your teammates to come in and help you. And the higher up you get in competitive play, the less important the point sensor becomes. It becomes less of a, is there someone here, and more of a, which side of this piece of cover should I be aiming at in order to hit the person who is here? Because your awareness is going to improve over time, and you're also going to be getting access to more information. You're going to have access to what your teammates see once they start learning how to use callouts and using those effectively. So that's a big glaring weakness. In the neutral game, you're either up on top of someone right at the range where you want to be fighting them, or you have to just kind of sit back and throw point sensors and wait for something else to happen, because it's really hard to force something to happen without having access to like a good piece of cover you can use, without having a teammate pushing in with you. It's got to be a lot more passive. You can't force the issue as much. You also can't stall as well. So if you get run at, it's either you get away or you win the fight. You can never really like stall that out. You can't zone them necessarily just by using the main weapon in the way that you could stall them by using a Fizzy Bomb. A lot of the same positioning rules for the sloshing machine still apply from the vanilla kit. You want to be sitting underneath ledges, you want to be working around cover, because like we've mentioned, cover lets you see them, but they might not be able to see you. Now, they will probably use the direction that you threw your point sensor to judge where you came from. So you can't necessarily just rely on them never knowing where you are. But it is really useful to kind of keep putting yourself in positions that they can't fight back from. I could see you maybe wanting to use this in some niche situations in comp, where you have a machine player, and for whatever reason, your team really wants a Zuka, or really wants point sensor, really wants that extra vision. Depending on the comp, any of those tools could be valuable enough that the utility you lose from not having the Fizzy Bomb is negated or mitigated by having something else. But it is something that you would really need to build the rest of the comp around to make up for those added weaknesses. Okay, we're fighting against a tent. And I am the most aggressive weapon on this team comp. That is solo queue for you. So I'm going to need to play the mid area here and use my ability to hit up over ledges to my advantage. Which we can do very well here. We just need to make sure we're not peeking out too far to where we're getting ourselves in trouble, because we're not going to have a lot of forward pressure to help us out here. The goal with this is that we're looking for splats, because we are not going to be able to just outpaint them with the main weapon. So we're trying to catch people in positions like this, where they can't defend against us because we have AoE damage, and flush them out into our teammates. Nice, okay. I'm gonna move up here. Keep that player marked. I can't really do too much about them until I get into a better angle, but I can mark them so that my teammates can see where they are. There I even got forced out, but even so, still able to help here. And this is a way that in solo queue you can call a flank, is just tag them with a point sensor. See if we can get out. I don't want to get baited by the Zuka, yeah. The Zuka was going to aim in that direction, knowing that we were going to be going for the cooler. Haha, tent. Tent is scary for weapons that have line of sight damage. My damage is not line of sight. I can just hit past it. And now they have to just kind of make a desperation play forward, and I'm getting it in their way as much as I can. And I would have probably gotten a double with that Zuka. So it was a little bit tricky early on, a little slow to move up, not just because of the comp, but because I had to kind of poke, stay around the piece of cover there, and try to flush enemy players out. I didn't want to run at them. If I run at them, I don't have the kill time to be able to splat them. But if I kind of stand my ground in a place where I know I'm safe and keep myself safe by making sure to collect information on what's around me. Eventually, I get that opportunity, and once we got the opportunity, we had a comp that was, obviously very good on defense because of all the backline that was going on there, and that enabled us to hold the rest of the way. So those are some really big numbers there on the KAs. This went unusually well. I might just throw in another game to get something a little bit less of an outlier. Something where there's a little more back and forth. Okay, we've got a tent and lots of ability to stall here. And they've got a Hydra plus an E-Leader. Wow, okay. This is a very long-range fight here. I'm going to actually want to get up kind of close here. See if I can... I want to find places where I can get up underneath those backline weapons. Because nobody on their team wants to dive me down here. If there were frontline weapons, I would probably have been dead there. But nobody's going to go after me from this position. Alright. And you can see there the point sensor made it a lot easier for me to line up the shot that I needed to take. Well, didn't quite hit the last shot that we needed, but our team followed up with us. Oh, man. It's hard to do these videos for splat zones, because splat zones is so likely to KO. I was hoping that they would have to drop to be able to hammer me there, and then that would take them off the zone and they wouldn't paint it, but it's fine. They weren't able to paint it anyway. But yeah, so you get 2 for the price of 1, and that's still probably less overall game time than you're going to get from a normal video here. But what the heck, we had a couple good ones. Hopefully that is inspired some ideas for what you can do with this thing. I do run a little bit of run speed on it, and that makes it significantly better to use up on grates. You can kind of back up while hitting down through the grates, while kind of using the extra height to outrange people. So that's really good. For example, on the elbow of ship shape, if a frontliner is trying to push you out, you can just hop up on the grate, back up, and kite them, and that can be pretty helpful. And I didn't really get to show it off there because I'm going to have a Hydra and an E-Leader looking at me both at the same time, but that's another aspect of the weapon that's kind of convenient to be able to use. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any tips for this weapon, if you've been playing it a lot, and let me know what you would like me to focus on for the next one.